Alright, welcome back to another Roblox programming and game development tutorial. And today we are extending the introduction that we did to local scripts and starting to talk a little bit about front end or graphical user interface in Roblox Studio. So the whole idea is essentially, again, if you haven't watched my client server video, please watch that. But I decided to create a little image to you guys so you guys can go ahead and see what this looks like. But essentially, whenever you're playing Roblox or whenever you're even interacting with a web browser, right? Even if I pulled up a web browser, essentially I am using this client application, in this case Google Chrome, to send messages to a server to render specific things or gather specific information, right? That is the whole idea of a client, which is you playing either like Roblox Player. I don't know if I have it downloaded here, but Roblox Player is the application, and that would be sending requests to the server, right? So you have all these clients, and then these clients are asking the server to do things. Now, when it comes to front end is typically all your user interface, right? And you'll hear me use the word front end and UI kind of together, right? UI stands for user interface, and then GUI is the graphical user interface. You don't have to worry too much about the difference specifically in Roblox Studio, but essentially sometimes you will have user interface that is not, how do I say this, like in an app, like, let's not get into the difference between UI and GUI. Just know that essentially whenever somebody says UI or GUI or GUI, they're talking about elements that you would click inside of either a web application or a mobile or desktop application to get the app to do specific things. For example, if I click this toolbox here, you can clearly see that the application responds and does things, and it pulls up all these different models which are being pulled from probably a Roblox API somewhere, right? And if I click parts, this is the UI for Roblox Studio. It will then render a part object, which is represented using JSON. We don't have to get too much into that, but essentially then all the properties are here, and I can select all of these things. This is all the UI, right? And to create UI for your game, for example, like a start menu, what you would do is you would click this UI, and essentially you can then use this to create UI. Now, generally speaking, UI or GUI is put here in the starter GUI. There's a couple other places you can put it, but primarily this folder here inside of Roblox Studio was made specifically for graphical user interface to be put in. So essentially, when I click this plus button here, I can create a screen GUI. This is a graphical user interface that will be 2D on my screen. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click here and we'll create a frame. And as you can see, that renders this frame here. And then in this frame, I can create another child element, for example, like a text box or button or whatever, and it renders a text label, right? And in that text label, I can change the text, which is going to be one of the properties here, and I can make the text say, "Hello, world." And as you can see, this is the GUI or a graphical user interface that I can interact with. Okay, and this is the whole idea. And you can use this to, for example, build a start menu. So like if I had, this here, right, and then I came down here and made this bigger, said like, "Welcome to my game." Boom, and I can scale the text either to scale based on how big the screen is, like that, or I can use a manual text size like this, and I can come here and I can give the stroke color something here, and I can come and start messing around with the text color, make it a whole bunch of cool little colors, right? Oh, it doesn't look like it's saving when I'm clicking OK. Oh, it's got to go up. There we go. OK. Right, and then I can also change the stroke color, for example. Boom, click OK. Cool. And then I can change things about the border color. I can change the background transparency. So if I wanted the background color to be slightly different to really emphasize that, I could do that. I can come here to the frame and change this to a different color as well. And as you can see, I'm creating, user interface that would be loaded when the player plays. So this would be, for example, welcome to the game. So welcome. And then here I can create a button, right, that says play. So we'll rename this play. I'm here, click play. Boom. Okay, and there you go. So this is just a very brief introduction to all the different elements that Roblox Studio provides for creating user interface and front end, right? So to finish out this video, we'll talk a little bit in the next video about adding scripts and adding client-side code to control user interface. But before we do that, let's go ahead and just look at the general layout that you should kind of think of things. So I'll use kind of like HTML to be kind of like a good bridge for some of those who maybe have some experience in web development. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. Essentially, screen GUI would be your HTML like tag. So when you do like, bracket, exclamation point, doc type HTML, that's kind of like your screen GUI, right? So that everything is in that screen GUI. Then underneath that, you may have some metadata. The metadata is typically like in here, and you're not going to be importing any like external APIs, so you don't really have to worry about that. We'll talk about external modules and stuff like that as what the course comes in, but you won't really have like a head tag per se. If you wanted to give this a title, it would be up here. You would just rename this, but that's pretty much the big important thing in the head tag would be the title, but you would just change the name here. And think of the frame kind of as like a main or a body tag. This is where most of your elements are going to be held, are going to be inside a specific frame, and then you'll have multiple different frames that render based on what is asked or how the user interacts with your UI. Then underneath frame, you can have a whole bunch of other different elements. For example, a play, a button, right? Now this is clickable. You can have a welcome button. You can have, and we'll come here and look at all the UI elements. You can have constraints as far as how things are layered. You can create a video frame, which is actually really, really cool. They kind of just added this, but this actually plays a video. So if you wanted a video in your game, right, you would use it with a video frame. As well, you can create a viewport. You can also have, let's see, some images here as well. So if you wanted an image, you would do it this way. You can also create a canvas group, which is similar to a frame. But as you can see here, there's many different UI elements here. But typically you would have a frame here, and then you could also have a scrolling frame as well. That's another thing you could use. And then this is just like a normal frame, but you can scroll, as the name implies. And the idea here is that this would be kind of like your body, or you could even treat this like a div, and then you would have these different elements here. And then styling is typically done here. So any of the styles you want to do, for example, if you wanted to change like the font of play, you would change it here. This is where you would do all your styling. So make it bangers, text bangers, creepster, right? You can make the text color now red. Right, so if I wanted to have a red text color, I would scroll this up, make it red. If I wanted to change the background color of this, I could change it here, right here. Get kind of like that. You can also make the screen black. Yeah, there we go. Play. Kind of like Halloween right now. Make this kind of like a red. And here's positioning and stuff like that. Now, something important that isn't talked about enough inside of Roblox Studio, but you want to make things as cross-platform as possible. So what does that mean? UI is important to keep in mind that when people play your game, they may be playing on a variety of different devices, right? And you can actually see a tester here. It's in test, and you can click device here, and you'll see all the different devices that they can play on. And as you can see, based on the device that I play on, the UI is rendering in a different way for every single one of these devices, right? So for a laptop, this is good. For Xbox One, it's okay. But for an iPhone 7, my UI is like coming off the screen here, and I don't want that. So if I start changing things for iPhone 7, for example, all right, it works great there, but now it's gonna look kind of weird on my laptop. It's gonna be like over here. So there actually is a pretty easy way to fix this. And in CSS, for example, whenever you style text, you wanna use REM. Or, if you want to declare like the height, you would use percentages, right? Same thing is going to apply here inside of Roblox Studio. You're always going to want to set the position and size of things based on percents. So if we come over here, right down here, you'll see size. Essentially, the first number here will take a percentage, where 1 is the full percent of the screen and 0 is none percent. Where this is the x-axis, and then this is the y-axis here. So generally speaking, the second parameter that the size element here takes, or the size property takes, is going to be like the amount of pixels. So typically what you want to do is you want to get rid of the amount of pixels here, and you only want to use this as a percentage, right? So now this is 20% of the screen, right? So now, as you see, I'll go ahead and change this welcome elements up so it's correct here. And then you would change the y to be, whatever you want here. But you want to use percents or fractions here to dictate this GUI. As well with the position, you're going to want to do the exact same thing. So if I come, position's actually already set correctly, as you can see here. Size was incorrect. So watch what happens with welcome game now. If I start stretching the screen, you'll see, hold on. Let's see here. What's going on with welcome game? Oh, the frame is not set correctly. I don't think the frame is also not set correctly. So you would have to do the same thing with the frame. Typically speaking, when I work inside the frame, I kind of treat this like my body tag, or maybe even a div tag, depending on if I have a whole bunch of other elements. But as you can see here, the other elements are starting to react here as I am changing the size of my frame, and then the position as well. I would set this to 0 and 0. So essentially the frame starts in this corner, and as you can see now, when I change cross-platform, the welcome is going to render here across all these different things, as you can see. And then you can even change the text here to wrap, so that way it wraps, and you want to scale it to the size of the thing, or the size of the device, and make sure the text wraps. Perfect. So now click on these, you can see that it scales correctly. And this is how you create cross-platform UI. And as you can see, this play button here isn't scaling correctly because I'm still using pixels instead of percentages here. So that's just a nice little introduction into UI. And I'm talking here again about how you can make the UI not only look good on this screen, but try and look good across every screen, right? And then this is just the basics of how you would create this. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.